Hi everyone, it's Mary from Joyful and Mary Quilting, and welcome to this month's session of Mary's Threads, Ask a Quilter. Today we have 4 letters. One is about what to do with an unfinished quilt that you just don't feel like finishing. One about avoiding burnout during quilt-alongs. One about taming those wavy borders, and one about making smart choices about buying fabric online. This is a place where we celebrate the way you quilt and say goodbye to the guilt and pressure that too often sneaks into our sewing rooms. Each one of us brings a different style, different preferences, different experience levels, and our own beautiful quilting personalities to the table. And what's our motto? We love how we quilt, we are done with guilt, and we kindly don't care what others think we should do. Now, we're keeping the letters anonymous for privacy, but I'll give each quilter a fun pseudonym that fits their story. And if you have a question for Mary's Threads, Ask a Quilter, please email me, mary@joyfulandmaryquilting.com, and your letter might appear in an upcoming video. So let's get started. Letter number 1 is from Unfinished and Unsure. Dear Mary, I made a quilt a year ago, and it is still just sitting there and not quilted. Why? I'm not happy with it. I think about just quilting it and donating it, but it's a baby quilt and I just don't feel it's big enough. I thought about trying to add to it somehow to make it bigger, but I'm not a creator. I am more of a pattern follower. I'm not sure what to do. Do you have any suggestions? Signed, Unfinished and Unsure. So here's my reply. Dear Unfinished and Unsure, my first thought is, why not just donate it? There are so many organizations that would love and appreciate a baby quilt. Even if it's not exactly what you originally envisioned, they may love it. Organizations like Project Linus accepts quilts for children, and you could also check with a local hospital or a women's shelter, a church nursery, a pregnancy center, or even a charity group. I'm sure you could easily find it a wonderful home. Also, baby quilts truly do not need to be large. Many are intentionally made smaller for car seats, for tummy time, cribs, or just little play mats. If you do decide you want to make it larger, you don't necessarily have to create something complicated. You could simply add 1 or more borders around it. Even a simple coordinating border can completely change the look and the size of a quilt. But honestly, if the quilt is finished except for quilting, I would encourage you to finish it and then let it bless someone else. Sometimes quilts we aren't thrilled with end up being deeply loved by another person. Letter number 2. This letter is from Quilt-along Quitter. She says, Dear Mary, I sign up for quilt-alongs because they sound fun, but halfway through I lose interest or I fall behind, and then I feel bad for not finishing. Here's my reply. Dear Quilt-along Quitter, I absolutely understand, and you are definitely not alone. Quilt-alongs can be so exciting in the beginning. The fabric pulls, the inspiration, the community, and all of the beautiful photos people share along the way. But you know what? Life happens. Schedules get busy, energy changes, or sometimes we simply realize the project isn't quite our style after all. One thing that can really help is going into a quilt-along with the mindset that you are going to complete it at your own pace from the very beginning. I know that is easier said than done, especially if you're a rule follower like me. But you know what? It can relieve so much of the stress that comes with each new step reveal and the feeling that, you have to keep up. That's what we feel. So I've learned that I only join quilt-alongs if the timeline and the project truly fit my schedule and my taste. Otherwise, what starts out as fun can quickly begin to feel stressful or overwhelming. And here's the most important thing. There's nothing wrong with downloading the pattern, setting it aside, and then finishing it later at your own pace. Even if that's months or years later, it's okay. We don't have any quilt police knocking on your door asking where your final block is. Quilting needs to bring us joy, creativity, relaxation. It should never feel like homework. Sometimes the best thing we can do is give ourselves permission to enjoy the process without the pressure of keeping up with everyone else. Letter number 3. This one is from Borderline Frustrated. Dear Mary, my quilt borders keep coming out wavy, even though I measure carefully. What am I doing wrong? So here's my reply. Dear Borderline Frustrated, first of all, this is a really common issue. You are definitely not alone. The good news is that wavy borders are usually very fixable, and often all it takes is proper measuring and pinning. What I personally recommend is measuring the quilt top in 3 places, both sides and the middle, in both directions. For the vertical borders, you measure the 2 sides and down the middle. For the horizontal borders, you measure the top and the bottom and across the middle. You can then take the average of those measurements for the most accurate border length. If you want a simpler method, just measure straight down the center vertically, straight across the center horizontally. That also works very well. Once the border strips are cut, pinning becomes extremely important. I like to pin the border strip to the quilt at the center point first, and then the top and the bottom, and then in between each pin until it's anchored. This helps distribute any ease evenly, and it really prevents stretching, which is often what causes those ripples or those waves. The one thing I would strongly avoid is simply cutting a border strip longer than needed, sewing it on without pinning, and then trimming off the excess afterward. That method almost always leads to stretched edges and wavy borders because the quilt top and the border can shift and distort while you're sewing it. Borders can truly make or break how flat a quilt lies, but once you get the measuring and the pinning process down, it is so much easier. And remember, even experienced quilters occasionally end up with a wave in their border, and that means they need an appointment with the seam ripper. We rip it out, we start over. It's okay. Letter number 4. This one is from Online Fabric Gambler. Dear Mary, I buy fabric online, but sometimes the colors aren't what I expected when they arrive. I know that feeling. How can I make better choices? So here's my reply. Dear Online Fabric Gambler, oh yes, this is one issue many of us have experienced. Fabric can look very different on a computer screen or on a phone than it does in real life. Screen brightness, device settings, photography, and even our own perception of color and the size of print can all affect what we think we're ordering. If it's a very important project, especially one where color matching really matters, it might be worth it to just order a pre-cut, maybe a charm pack, a mini charm pack, a layer cake, a fat quarter, or even just a quarter yard of the fabric first. Once it arrives, you can see the actual color, the scale, and you can feel the fabric in person before committing to several yards. That small test purchase can save a lot of disappointment and extra expense later. I also remind myself that fabric almost always looks different once it's cut up and sewn into a quilt alongside other fabrics. Sometimes a fabric I wasn't sure about on its own ends up being absolutely perfect once everything comes together. And finally, I try to give myself grace when online fabric shopping doesn't go exactly as planned. Every quilter probably has at least one, probably a lot more, purchases that looked completely different than expected when the package arrived. Sometimes those fabrics become beautiful stash additions for future projects, even if they weren't right for the original plan. So, thank you to our quilters who submitted questions for this month's Mary's Threads Ask a Quilter. If you enjoyed today's session, please click like and subscribe to the Joyful and Merry Quilting YouTube channel so you don't miss the next one. And if you do have a question, a story, or a comment you'd like to share, either post it in the comments or send me an email at mary@joyfulandmerryquilting.com, and your letter might be featured in a future session. And what did we say? We love how we quilt, we're done with guilt, and we kindly don't care what others think we should do. I'm always trying to be joyful, but I will always be merry. Thank you for joining me.